The fluorescent lights of the Manhattan courthouse flickered as Sarah Mitchell gathered her files, her hands steady despite the thundering of her heart. Across the aisle, she could feel those eyes on her again, sharp, calculating, forest green eyes that seemed to see through every carefully constructed argument she'd prepared. Diana Rousseau. The name alone had become synonymous with sleepless nights and second-guess strategies over the past 3 months. Senior partner at Whitmore and Associates, defender of corporate giants, and according to legal gossip, the woman who'd never lost a case that mattered. Sarah was about to make her lose her first. Double quotes Ms. Mitchell. Judge Patterson's voice cut through her thoughts. Your closing argument. Sarah stood, smoothing down her navy blazer. At 32, she was the youngest lead counsel her firm had ever appointed to a case of this magnitude. The Henderson class action suit for 100 employees alleging systematic wage theft by Quantum Technologies was her chance to prove she belonged at the table with legal titans. Even if one of those titans happened to be the most infuriatingly brilliant woman she'd ever faced. Your Honor, members of the jury, Sarah began, her voice clear and strong. For the past 6 weeks, you've heard testimony from workers who gave years of their lives to Quantum Technologies, single mothers who work double shifts, college students paying their way through school, retirees who came back to work because Social Security wasn't enough. She moved toward the jury box, making eye contact with each person. The defense wants you to believe this is about accounting errors, clerical mistakes, but the evidence shows a pattern, a system designed to shave minutes here, hours there, thousands of dollars from people who couldn't afford to lose a single dime. From the corner of her eye, she saw Diana lean back in her chair, arms crossed, that enigmatic half-smile playing at her lips. The smile that said she had something Sarah didn't know about. The smile that had haunted Sarah's dreams, though she'd never admit the nature of those dreams to anyone, least of all herself. Sarah delivered her closing with precision, weaving together testimony and evidence like threads in a tapestry. When she sat down 20 minutes later, she felt the weight of Diana's gaze like a physical touch. Then Diana stood. She moved like water, fluid and unstoppable. Her charcoal suit was perfectly tailored, her dark hair pulled back in a low bun that somehow made her look both severe and stunning. At 40, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd won so many battles that victory was simply expected. Ms. Mitchell paints a compelling picture. Diana began, her voice rich with a faint French accent that appeared when she was in performance mode. A story of victims and villains. It's emotionally resonant. It's also incomplete. For the next 30 minutes, Diana systematically dismantled Sarah's argument, not with aggression, but with surgical precision. She acknowledged the workers' struggles while redirecting focus to voluntary overtime policies, clear documentation of hours worked, and third-party payroll systems that made systematic fraud nearly impossible. Sarah's stomach sank as she watched the jury respond. Diana wasn't just good, she was extraordinary. She made the complex simple, the damning seem reasonable. By the time she finished, Sarah could feel her case slipping away. The judge dismissed them for deliberation. Sarah packed her briefcase with mechanical efficiency, trying not to let defeat show on her face. You did well. Sarah looked up to find Diana standing at her table, close enough that Sarah could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive, probably French. Did I? Sarah couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. Because it feels like I just got eviscerated in front of 12 people. Diana's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Your argument was strong. Your passion, genuine. That matters more than you think. She paused. This is your first class action as lead counsel, yes? Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been watching closely. Diana's eyes held hers for a moment too long, and Sarah felt something shift in the air between them, something that had nothing to do with the case and everything to do with the way. Diana's gaze dropped briefly to Sarah's lips before returning to her eyes. Sarah's pulse quickened. I need to go prep my clients for the verdict. Of course. Diana stepped back, professional distance restored. Though I suspect we won't wait long. This jury seems decisive. She was right. 2 hours later, They were back in the courtroom. We find in favor of the defendant, Quantum Technologies. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She heard gasps from the gallery where her client sat. Months of work, hundreds of hours, all for nothing. She forced herself to remain composed as the judge thanked the jury and dismissed the court. Outside on the courthouse steps, Sarah fielded questions from reporters while cameras flashed. She gave them the expected statements about appeals and continuing the fight. But inside she felt hollowed out. When the press finally dispersed, she found herself alone on the steps as evening descended on the city. The October air was crisp, carrying the scent of roasting chestnuts from a nearby vendor. "I'm sorry," Sarah turned to find Diana standing a few feet away, her briefcase in hand, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Are you?" Sarah couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "You won. Isn't that what matters? It's my job to win." Diana moved closer. "That doesn't mean I don't respect what you were fighting for. Respect doesn't pay my client's rent." Sarah turned away, blinking back frustrated tears she refused to let fall. "I should have been better. I should have." "Stop." Diana's hand touched her arm, gentle but firm. "You couldn't have done more. The evidence simply wasn't there. Not for the standard you needed to meet. That's not your failure. Then whose failure is it?" Sarah pulled away. Those people needed justice. They needed someone who could actually deliver. They needed a system that doesn't stack the deck against them from the start. Diana's voice carried an unexpected fierceness. "You're angry at the wrong person, Sarah. I'm not your enemy. The game is rigged, and we're both just playing our parts." It was the first time Diana had used her first name, and hearing it in that accented voice did something to Sarah's already fragile composure. "I can't do this right now." Sarah started down the steps. "Wait." Diana followed. "Let me buy you a drink. You look like you could use one." Sarah stopped, turning to stare at Diana incredulously. "You're joking. I rarely joke about alcohol." Diana's mouth quirked. "There's a bar 2 blocks from here. Quiet. No one from the legal world. You can yell at me if it helps, or we can drink in silence. Your choice." Every professional instinct Sarah had screamed that this was a terrible idea, but something in Diana's eyes or vulnerability Sarah had never seen in the courtroom made her hesitate. "1 drink?" Sarah heard herself say. "And I'm probably going to say things I'll regret. I'm counting on it." The bar Diana led her to was exactly as promised, her dimly lit neighborhood spot where the clientele consisted mainly of older men watching baseball and a couple having a quiet argument in the corner booth. They found seats at the far end of the polished wood bar. "Whiskey," Sarah told the bartender. "Neat. Make it a double." Diana ordered the same, then turned on her stool to face Sarah. In the low light, with her jacket off and her sleeves rolled to her elbows, she looked less like the courtroom predator and more like a regular woman at the end of a long day. "So," Diana said when their drinks arrived, "tell me how I'm everything wrong with the legal system." Sarah took a long sip of whiskey, letting the burn settle her nerves. "You really want to do this? I wouldn't have asked if I didn't." "Fine." Sarah set down her glass. "You use your considerable talent to protect corporations that exploit workers. You win cases by burying opponents in paperwork and technicalities rather than addressing actual justice. And you're so good at it that you've probably never had to question whether winning is the same as being right." Diana absorbed this without flinching. "Accurate, though I'd add that I also ensure due process, prevent frivolous litigation, and occasionally save companies that employ thousands of people from bankruptcy based on allegations that don't meet evidentiary standards. That's a very pretty rationalization." "It's the truth." Diana sipped her whiskey. "The uncomfortable truth is that both things can be real simultaneously. I do protect corporations. I also believe in the rule of law, which requires someone to defend even unpopular clients. Without that, the entire system collapses." Sarah wanted to argue, but the whiskey and exhaustion were wearing down her edges. "How do you live with it, knowing that your victories might mean someone can't pay their medical bills?" "The same way you live with losing this case," Diana said quietly. "By remembering that we're part of a system not the whole system. We do our jobs as well as we can, and we trust that over time, justice has a way of emerging from the chaos. That sounds like something you tell yourself to sleep at night. It is. Diana's smile was sad, but I also donate to legal aid organizations, to pro bono work, and volunteer at a women's shelter. We all cope with our contradictions somehow. Sarah studied her, seeing dimensions she hadn't expected. The ruthless Diana Russo volunteers at a shelter twice a month for the past 5 years. Diana flagged the bartender for another round. I'm full of surprises. Apparently, Sarah found herself curious despite her resentment. What made you become a lawyer? Diana was quiet for a moment, running her finger around the rim of her glass. My mother, she was a seamstress in Lyon, where I grew up. When I was 15, the factory owner fired all the workers right before they would have qualified for pension benefits. She had no recourse, no money for a lawyer. She died 3 years later. Still working double shifts at 60 years old. The raw pain in Diana's voice was unexpected. Sarah felt her anger softening against her will. I'm sorry, I vowed that day to understand the law well enough that no one could use it as a weapon against me or people I loved. Diana's laugh was bitter. Ironic, isn't it? I became exactly what I hated. That's not. Sarah stopped. Actually, yes, it kind of is. At least you're honest. Diana raised her glass in a mock toast. They drank in silence for a moment. Sarah felt the whiskey warming her from the inside, loosening the tight knotted disappointment in her chest. Why did you become a lawyer? Diana asked. Sarah considered deflecting, then decided she was too tired for pretense. My little sister, she was killed by a drunk driver when she was 16. The guy was rich, had expensive lawyers. He got 6 months in county jail, served 3. My parents fell apart, and I decided someone had to fight for people who couldn't afford justice. So we're both driven by lust. Diana's eyes held understanding. That's either poetic or pathetic. I can't decide which. Can it be both with us? Probably. The us hung in the air between them, loaded with implications neither seemed ready to examine. Sarah found herself noticing details she'd forced herself to ignore in the courtroom, the way Diana's hair had come slightly loose from its bun, the intelligence and humor in her eyes, the elegant line of her neck. Stop it, she told herself. This woman just destroyed your case. But her body wasn't listening. When Diana shifted on her stool and their knees brushed, Sarah felt the contact like electricity. I should go, Sarah said abruptly, setting down her empty glass. Should you? Diana's voice was soft, questioning. Or do you feel like you should go because staying feels dangerous? Sarah's breath caught. What are you implying? Nothing you haven't been thinking. Diana held her gaze. I see how you look at me in court, Sarah, the same way I look at you when you're too focused on your arguments to notice. You're wrong. Sarah's voice lacked conviction. Am I? Diana leaned in slightly, and Sarah caught that scent again, intoxicating and infuriating. Tell me you haven't wondered what it would be like. Tell me you don't feel this thing between us, and I'll pay the tab, and we'll never speak of this again. Sarah's heart hammered. Every logical thought in her head screamed that this was professional suicide, personal disaster, a collision waiting to happen. But looking into Diana's eyes, she couldn't lie. I can't tell you that, she whispered. Diana's smile was slow and devastating. Good, because I was running out of plausible deniability myself. This is insane. We're opposing counsel. Where the case is over, Diana interrupted. You're likely not appealing based on the evidence. And even if you were, there are ethical walls we could build. But more importantly, we're both adults capable of making our own decisions. But decisions, apparently, the best kind. Diana signaled for the tab. Come home with me. Let me show you that I'm not just the enemy in a suit. Sarah knew she should say no, should walk away, go home, pretend this conversation never happened. Instead, she found herself nodding. Diana's apartment was in a pre-war building in the Upper West Side, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. It was elegant without being ostentatious, filled with art that looked original and expensive. Wine? Diana asked, shrugging off her jacket. I think I've had enough alcohol for one night. Sarah stood awkwardly in the living room, suddenly uncertain. What was she doing here? This woman had just handed her the biggest loss of her career. Diana seemed to sense her hesitation. We don't have to do anything, Sarah, we can talk. I can call you a car, whatever you need. The gentleness in her voice ended something in Sarah. What I need is to stop thinking for a few hours, to stop analyzing and strategizing and feeling like I failed everyone who was counting on me. Double quotes. Diana crossed the room to stand in front of her. You didn't fail. You walked into an impossible situation and fought brilliantly. That verdict says nothing about your ability. Then why does it feel like everything? Because you care. Because this matters to you more than winning. Diana reached up slowly, giving Sarah time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her. That's what I noticed about you from the first day in court. You weren't performing. You believed every word you said. The touch, small as it was, sent heat through Sarah's body. And you, do you believe what you say? Sometimes, not always. With you, Diana's thumb traced Sarah's jawline. With you, I believed in the fight. You made me want to be better. Even as I was tearing apart your case. That's twisted. Completely. Diana smiled. Kiss me anyway. Sarah closed the distance between them. The kiss was not gentle. It was months of tension, professional rivalry, and denied attraction colliding in a rush of heat and need. Diana's hands tangled in Sarah's hair, and Sarah pulled her closer, desperate to feel something other than disappointment. They broke apart, breathing hard. Bedroom, Diana asked, her voice rough. Sarah nodded. Beyond words, Diana's bedroom was dimly lit by streetlights filtering through gauze curtains. They undressed each other with urgency, professional armor falling away piece by piece. Sarah tried not to think about the implications, the complications, the morning after. Right now, there was only Diana's skin under her hands, Diana's mouth on her neck, Diana's body pressing her back onto the bed. Tell me what you need, Diana whispered against her ear. Make me forget, Sarah answered. Please. Diana proceeded to do exactly that. Later, they lay tangled in sheets, Sarah's head on Diana's shoulder. The initial desperation had given way to something slower, more exploratory. Diana touched her like she was solving a puzzle, learning what made Sarah gasp and arch and beg. I should hate you, Sarah murmured into the darkness. I know. Diana's fingers traced patterns on her back. I should probably hate myself. Why don't you? Because I've wanted this since the first time you objected in court, and the judge sustained it. You were so fierce, so certain. I thought, this is someone I could respect, and then, this is someone I could want. The two became inseparable. Sarah propped herself up on one elbow to look at Diana. In the dim light, with her hair loose, and her carefully constructed professional facade gone, she was breathtaking. What happens now? I don't know. Diana's honesty was refreshing. This violates about 17 rules of professional conduct, not to mention common sense. So we pretend it didn't happen. Could you do that? Diana's hand came up to cup Sarah's face. Because I don't think I can. Sarah kissed her instead of answering. Because the truth was too complicated. She didn't know what she could or couldn't do. All she knew was that Diana's touch felt like coming home and running away simultaneously. They made love again. Slower this time, with an attention to detail that bordered on reverence. When Sarah finally fell asleep just before dawn, it was to the sound of Diana's heartbeat and the unsettling realization that she was in serious trouble. Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then the previous night came rushing back, and she groaned. She'd slept with Diana Rousseau, her opponent, the woman who'd just destroyed her case. That sound does wonders for my ego. Diana's voice came from the doorway. She was wearing a silk robe, holding two mugs of coffee. Looking unfairly composed, Sarah sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. I should go, should you? Diana crossed the room and handed her a mug. Or is that just panic talking? It's 7 a.m. I'm naked in your bed, and I have a partners meeting at 9. where I have to explain why I lost a case everyone expected me to win. So yes, maybe it's panic. Diana sat on the edge of the bed, careful to leave space between them. For what it's worth, I called in sick. First time in 6 years. Why? Because I wanted to have this conversation before you ran away. Diana sipped her coffee. Last night wasn't just about the case or the stress. At least not for me. Sarah's hands tightened around her mug. Diana, I know all the reasons this is complicated, but I'm 40 years old. Sarah, I've had my share of relationships. Some good, most forgettable. What I felt last night, that was something different. It was sex. Good sex, admittedly. But it was more than sex. Diana's eyes held hers. And you know it. Sarah did know it. That was the problem. Last night had been about more than physical release. There had been a connection, a recognition of something deeper. But that didn't make it any less impossible. I can't do this, Sarah said quietly. My career is already in jeopardy. If anyone finds out I slept with opposing counsel, the case is closed. There's no ethical violation now, maybe not technically, but the optics are terrible. And beyond that, Diana, we're fundamentally opposed in what we do. You defend corporations. I fight them. How would that even work? Diana was quiet for a long moment. I don't have all the answers, but I know that what happened between us last night was real, and I'm tired of pretending I don't want things just because they're inconvenient. This isn't just inconvenient. It's complicated, messy, potentially disastrous. Yes, I'm aware. Diana set down her mug and took Sarah's hand. I'm also aware that I haven't felt this alive in years. That you challenge me intellectually and attract me physically in ways I didn't think were possible anymore. That walking away from this without exploring it further would be a coward's choice. Sarah wanted to protest that walking away was the smart choice, the safe choice. But looking at Diana, this brilliant, complicated woman who'd shown her unexpected vulnerability, she couldn't quite make the words come out. I need time, she finally said. I need to get through this partners meeting, process what happened, figure out if this is really something I want to pursue or just a stress reaction to losing. That's fair. Diana squeezed her hand before releasing it. Take all the time you need, but know that I'm here when you're ready to figure it out. Sarah showered and dressed in yesterday's clothes, hyper-aware of Diana watching her from the doorway. When she was ready to leave, Diana walked her to the door. Sarah, Diana said as Sarah stepped into the hallway. For what it's worth, I think you're an exceptional lawyer. That verdict doesn't change that. Sarah's throat tightened. Thank you. She made it to the elevator before the tears came. The partners meeting was exactly as brutal as Sarah expected. John Henderson, the firm's managing partner, laid out the financial implications of the loss in excruciating detail. The potential clients they'd likely lose. The questions about Sarah's readiness for complex litigation. The need to reconsider strategic assignments. Sarah sat through it with as much dignity as she could muster, accepting responsibility while also pointing out the evidentiary challenges that had made the case difficult from the start. By the time she escaped to her office, she felt wrung out. Rough morning. Sarah looked up to find her colleague Marcus leaning in her doorway. At 45, he was one of the few black senior partners in the firm and had been a mentor to Sarah since she joined. Is it that obvious? You have that look like you want to set something on fire. Usually means Henderson's been Henderson. Marcus came in and closed the door. Want to talk about it? Sarah considered, then decided she needed someone's perspective. The verdict wasn't the only thing that happened yesterday. Oh, I slept with Diana Russo. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. The Diana Russo? Your opposing counsel Diana Russo? Former opposing counsel. The case is over. Semantics. Sarah. Marcus sat down heavily. What were you thinking? I wasn't. That's the problem. Sarah dropped her head into her hands. It just happened. We went for drinks, talked about our reasons for becoming lawyers. And then, suddenly, we were at her apartment and I don't need the details. Marcus held up a hand. What I need to know is whether this was a what I'm stress release or something more. I don't know. Maybe both. Sarah looked up at him miserably. She wants to see me again. Says what we have is worth exploring. And you? I think she might be right, which terrifies me. I can't afford another complication right now, Marcus. My career is already in question, true. But I've known you for 5 years, Sarah. And I've never seen you this conflicted over a personal decision. That usually means it matters. Marcus leaned forward. Let me ask you something. Forget the professional implications for a moment. Do you want to see her again? Sarah thought about Diana's laugh, her unexpected vulnerability, the way her eyes had softened when she'd talked about her mother, the connection she'd felt that went beyond physical attraction. Yes, she admitted quietly. God help me, yes. Then figure out how to make it work ethically and deal with the rest as it comes. Life's too short to walk away from something real because of what other people might think. When did you become a romantic? When I met my husband and realized that love doesn't wait for convenient timing. Marcus stood. Talk to her. Be honest about your concerns. But don't let fear make the decision for you. After Marcus left, Sarah stared at her phone for a long time before finally typing out a message. Can we talk? Tonight. Diana's response came almost immediately. My place. 7 p.m. I'll cook. Sarah's heart raced as she typed back, okay. Diana's apartment smelled like garlic and herbs. When Sarah arrived that evening, she'd gone home to change, opting for jeans and a sweater casual armor against the intensity of the conversation she knew they needed to have. Red or white? Diana asked, stirring something on the stove. She was dressed similarly casually, her hair loose around her shoulders. Red. Sarah accepted the glass Diana poured. You really cook? Surprised. I'm French. It's practically a requirement. Diana smiled. I find it meditative. Reminds me of my mother. They moved to the living room while the meal simmered. Sarah curled up in an armchair, maintaining distance. Needing to think clearly, you wanted to talk, Diana said, sitting across from her on the couch. I'm listening. Sarah took a deep breath. I need to understand what this is, what you want it to be. I want to see you again. Regularly. I want to know what makes you laugh. What keeps you up at night besides work? I want to take you to dinner and argue about the law and go home together afterward. Diana paused. I want to see if this could become something more than just chemistry. That sounds like dating. That's because it is dating. Diana's smile was gentle. I'm not interested in just sleeping with you occasionally when we're both stressed. Sarah, I'm interested in you. Sarah's chest tightened with something that felt dangerously like hope. We're going to face judgment, questions about ethics and conflicts of interest. People will assume I slept with you to get favorable treatment in the case, even though that's not what happened. Let them assume. Diana set down her wine glass. I've built my reputation over 15 years. One relationship isn't going to destroy that. And anyone who thinks you've compromised yourself that way doesn't know you at all. You barely know me yourself. Then let me know you better. Diana leaned forward. I understand your fears. This is risky professionally and personally, but I'm willing to take that risk if you are. Sarah was quiet, turning her wine glass in her hands. I told my colleague Marcus about us today. He asked if I wanted to see you again. And what did you tell him? The truth. That yes, I want to, even though it scares me. Sarah looked up to meet Diana's eyes. I've never been good at casual. Diana, if we do this, I'm going to catch feelings. Probably already have, if I'm honest. Diana's expression softened. Good, because casual stopped being an option for me about 30 seconds into our first kiss. Sarah felt something in her chest loosen. This is insane. Completely. Come here. Sarah set down her wine and crossed to sit beside Diana on the couch. Diana cupped her face with both hands, looking at her with an intensity that made Sarah's breath catch. I want to try this, Diana said softly. Properly, with all the complications and challenges and stupid judgment. Because I think you might be worth it. Might be? Sarah raised an eyebrow. Definitely are. I'm just trying to maintain some dignity. Sarah kissed her, slow and deep, trying to pour all her confused feelings into it. When they broke apart, she rested her forehead against Diana's Okay, she whispered. Let's try. Over dinner, a perfect Coke oven that Diana insisted was simple. They talked about logistics. They agreed to be discreet at first, not out of shame, but to avoid unnecessary complications. Well, they figured out if this relationship had legs. They'd be transparent with their firms about their personal relationship to avoid any future conflicts of interest. They'd take things one day at a time. What about the fundamental differences in our work? Sarah asked as they cleaned up together. That doesn't just go away. No, it doesn't. Diana handed her a plate to dry. But healthy relationships aren't about agreeing on everything. They're about respecting each other's choices and finding common ground where you can. And when we face each other in court again, because we will eventually, then we'll be professionals in court and partners at home. Diana turned to face her. I'm not naive, Sarah. This will be hard, but I've done the easy relationships. They left me cold. I'd rather have something difficult and real than simple and empty. Sarah set down the dish towel and pulled Diana close. You're very persuasive. You know, it's literally my job. Diana smiled against her lips. Stay tonight. Not for sex though, I'm certainly not opposed, but just stay. Let's see what this feels like outside of crisis and case stress. So Sarah stayed. They talked late into the night, curled up on Diana's couch with an old movie playing in the background. Sarah learned that Diana had been engaged once, years ago, to a woman who'd ultimately wanted different things. That she loved old jazz and terrible sci-fi movies. That she'd spent 2 years in the Peace Corps before law school, which was part of why she did pro bono work now. Diana learned that Sarah had almost become a teacher before choosing law, that she volunteered with a youth mentorship program, that she was terrified of failure, but even more terrified of not trying. By the time they went to bed, Diana lending her pajamas, Sarah felt like she understood Diana in ways that went beyond the courtroom and persona. And lying next to her in the dark, their fingers intertwined between the next 3 months were a study in contradictions. Professionally, Sarah threw herself into rebuilding her reputation at the firm. She took on smaller cases, won them convincingly, and slowly earned back the partner's confidence. Personally, she fell deeper into something she hadn't expected: love. Diana was nothing like she'd imagined. Outside the courtroom, she was surprisingly silly, with a dry wit that caught Sarah off guard. She left little notes in Sarah's bag when they spent nights together. She remembered details: how Sarah took her coffee, which cases were stressing her out, when Sarah's period was coming and needed extra patience. They kept their relationship mostly private, telling only close friends and their respective managing partners. The secrecy was oddly thrilling at first. Stolen kisses in parking garages and secret dinners at out-of-the-way restaurants. But it also meant hiding a significant part of her life. And as weeks turned to months, Sarah began to chafe at the restrictions. We should go out, she said one Saturday morning as they made breakfast together in Diana's kitchen. Like, really go out. To a restaurant people from work might actually go to. Diana looked up from the eggs she was scrambling. Are you sure you're ready for that? I'm tired of acting like we're doing something wrong. We're not. Sarah poured coffee. I want to go to dinner with my girlfriend without checking over my shoulder. Diana's smile was slow and bright. Is that what I am? Your girlfriend? Well, we've been sleeping together exclusively for 3 months. You've met Marcus and his husband, and I have a drawer at your place. What else would you call it? Fair point. Diana came round the counter to wrap her arms round Sarah's waist from behind. I like it, girlfriend. Very high school, but in a good way. So dinner tonight. That French place you mentioned? Perfect. I'll make a reservation. Diana pressed a kiss to her neck. Fair warning though, if we do this, people will talk. Let them talk. The restaurant was elegant, intimate, and according to Diana, served the best cassoulet outside of France. They were seated at a corner table, candlelit and romantic. Sarah felt pleasantly nervous, like this was a first date, even though they'd spent countless hours together already. To coming out of the shadows, Diana raised her wine glass, to not giving a damn what people think. Sarah clinked her glass against Diana's, They were halfway through their meal when Sarah noticed them two women from her firm sitting 3 tables over. She saw the moment they spotted her and Diana together. Saw the quick exchange of glances that meant gossip would be flowing Monday morning. "They saw us," she murmured to Diana. Diana glanced over casually. "Do you want to leave?" Sarah considered, then shook her head. "No, I'm exactly where I want to be. That's my girl." Diana reached across the table to take her hand. The gossip, when it came, was less dramatic than Sarah feared. Yes, there were whispers and raised eyebrows. Yes, John Henderson pulled her aside for an awkward conversation about maintaining professional boundaries. But there was also surprising support. Marcus, obviously, but also several other attorneys who admitted they'd suspected something and thought it was good for Sarah to have a personal life. Diana faced similar reactions at her firm, though with her senior partner status, she had more immunity from judgment. "I think we're officially out," Diana said one evening as they cooked dinner together at Sarah's apartment, a smaller space than Diana's, but one she gradually filled with small touches of both of them. "How does it feel?" Sarah asked. "Chopping vegetables. Terrifying. Liberating, right?" Diana came up behind her, wrapping her arms around Sarah's waist. "Mostly right." Sarah leaned back against her. "I love you, you know." She felt Diana still. "What? I love you." Sarah turned in her arms. "I probably have for weeks, but I was too chicken to say it. But I'm saying it now. I love you, Diana Rousseau." Diana's eyes were suspiciously bright. "You're going to make me cry. And I have a reputation to maintain." "Too late." Sarah kissed her softly. "I've already seen you cry. Remember last week when we watched that dog movie? That was dust in my eye. You sobbed for 20 minutes. Minor allergic reaction." Diana smiled through her tears. "I love you too, Sarah Mitchell, more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone." They kissed in Sarah's kitchen. The vegetables forgotten, dinner plans abandoned in favor of showing each other just how deep that love went. Their first real conflict came 4 months into the relationship. Sarah was assigned a case against Henderson Technologies or discrimination suit brought by a former employee. 2 weeks into discovery, Diana's firm was retained by Henderson Tech. "This is a problem," Sarah said when Diana told her over dinner. "Not necessarily. We can put up ethical walls. I won't work on the case directly." "Diana, you're the senior partner in charge of employment litigation. Not working on it directly doesn't mean you're not involved." Sarah pushed her food around her plate. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." "What?" "That we'd be professionals capable of maintaining appropriate boundaries. That our relationship would complicate our work. That I'd have to constantly question whether information is leaking, whether decisions are being influenced." "Stop." Diana's voice was sharp. "I would never compromise a case because of our relationship. The fact that you'd suggest it, I'm not suggesting you do it intentionally. But Diana, this is my career. I can't afford any appearance of impropriety. And mine doesn't matter." "That's not what I said. It's what you implied." Diana stood, carrying her plate to the sink with more force than necessary. "I've built my reputation on integrity. For you to question that, I'm not questioning your integrity." Sarah followed her. "I'm questioning whether we can really separate our personal and professional lives when they keep colliding like this." Diana turned to face her, and Sarah saw genuine hurt in her eyes. "So what are you saying? That we can't do this?" "I don't know what I'm saying." Sarah ran her hands through her hair in frustration. "I just know that every time I think we've figured this out, something new comes up to remind me why everyone said this was a bad idea. If you think it's a bad idea, maybe you should have said so before telling me you loved me." The words hung between them, sharp and painful. Sarah felt her own anger rising to meet Diana's. "Maybe I should have. Maybe this whole thing was a mistake born from stress and attraction and nothing more substantial." Diana flinched as if she'd been slapped. "Is that really what you think? Right now?" "I don't know what I think." "Then maybe you should leave until you figure it out." Sarah grabbed her jacket and did exactly that. She made it to her car before the tears came. She sat in Diana's parking garage, crying and furious with herself. Why had she said those things? Diana was right to be angry. Sarah had essentially accused her of being unprofessional, had questioned everything they'd built. But the fear was real too. The fear that their relationship would damage her career beyond repair, that she'd be seen as the junior attorney who slept with opposing counsel and could never be trusted. Her phone buzzed. Marcus heard about the Henderson case. You okay? Fought with Diana. Might have ended things. Want company? Yes. 20 minutes later, they were at their usual bar, and Sarah was pouring out the whole story. So let me get this straight, Marcus said when she finished. You got scared, picked a fight, and said things you didn't mean because pushing her away felt safer than being vulnerable. When you put it like that, I sound like an asshole. You sound like someone in love who's terrified. Marcus signaled for another round. But here's the thing, Sarah, Diana's right. You do question whether you can trust her professionally, and until you resolve that, you're always going to have one foot out the door. I do trust her. It's everyone else I don't trust. Then say that. Apologize for how you said it, but be honest about the fear underneath. That's what relationships are, choosing to be vulnerable even when it's scary. Sarah stared into her drink. What if I can't do it? What if I'm too damaged from everything with my sister? Too afraid of losing things that matter? Then you get therapy and work on it. But you don't throw away something real because it's hard. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. Go home, Sarah. Get some sleep. Talk to Diana tomorrow when you're both calmer. But don't let fear make your decisions. Sarah went home, but she didn't sleep. She lay awake replaying the fight, seeing Diana's face when Sarah had called their relationship a mistake. She'd hurt the woman she loved because she was scared. At 6 a.m., she texted Diana, I'm sorry. Can we please talk? The response came an hour later. My place. Noon. Diana answered the door in sweats and a t-shirt, her eyes red-rimmed. She looked as tired as Sarah felt. Come in. They sat in the living room, the space between them on the couch feeling like miles. I'm sorry, Sarah started. Everything I said last night was wrong and hurtful, and some of it was true, Diana interrupted. I've been so focused on making this work that I haven't fully acknowledged how much harder as for you than for me. I have seniority, power, an established reputation. You're still building yours. The stakes are different. That doesn't excuse me questioning your integrity. No, it doesn't. Diana's voice was firm, but not angry. That hurt, Sarah, more than I expected it to. I know. And I'm sorry. Sarah moved closer, taking Diana's hand. The truth is, I do trust you. Completely. What I don't trust is a system that's going to judge me more harshly than you for this relationship. That's going to whisper that I'm sleeping my way to favorable treatment, or that I can't separate personal from professional. And you think those whispers will destroy your career? I think they could damage it, make partners question my judgment, make me work twice as hard to prove myself. Sarah's voice broke. And last night, when you told me about the Henderson case, all those fears came rushing back, and I lashed out instead of talking about them rationally. Diana was quiet for a long moment. I can't promise this won't be hard. I can't guarantee people won't judge, but I can promise that I will always maintain professional boundaries, that I will be transparent about any potential conflicts, and that I will do everything in my power to protect both your career and our relationship. I know you will. Sarah lifted Diana's hand to her lips. And I promise to actually talk about my fears instead of turning them into weapons. I think we both could work on that. Diana managed a small smile. I wasn't exactly calm last night either. You had every right to be angry. Maybe. But I also shut down instead of hearing what you were really saying. Diana cupped Sarah's face. I love you. That means listening even when it's hard. I love you too. So much it terrifies me. Good. Terror means it matters. Diana kissed her softly. So what do we do about Henderson? I talked to my managing partner this morning. I'm pulling myself from the case. I'll cite the conflict and recommend one of the other partners take lead. Diana pulled back. Sarah, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Not because I don't trust us, but because I want there to be no question. I want to protect both of us. Sarah saw the protest forming on Diana's lips. This isn't about my career being more important than ours. It's about making a choice that lets me sleep at night and focus on our relationship without that particular fear hanging over me. You're sure? I'm sure. There will be other cases, but there's only one you. Diana pulled her close, and they held each other for a long moment. Sarah felt the last of the tension from their fight drain away, replaced by the solid certainty that they'd weather this storm together. We should probably talk about conflict protocols going forward, Diana said eventually. Set some ground rules so we know how to handle it next time. Next time. We're both litigators, love. There will definitely be a next time. They spent the afternoon drafting what they jokingly called the relationship and professional conduct agreement, guidelines for how they'd handle conflicts, what information was off limits, how they'd maintain ethical rules. It was nerdy and practical and exactly what they both needed. We're such lawyers, Sarah said as they finished. Is that surprising? Diana pulled her close. We just applied contract law to our relationship. At least we know it's binding. Only if we both sign it. Diana produced a pen with a flourish. They signed, dated it. And then Diana very ceremoniously folded it and put it in a drawer. There, official. You know that has no legal standing, right? It has emotional standing. That's better. Diana kissed her. Now, can we please stop talking about work and conflicts of interest and go back to the part where we're in love and relatively happy? Relatively. Well, we did just have our first major fight. I feel like relatively happy is appropriate. Fair. Sarah pulled her down onto the couch. How do we get to extremely happy? Diana's smile turned wicked. I have some ideas. Sarah adjusted her collar nervously, staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Today was the day. After a year of dating, 6 months of living together, and countless conversations about their future, she was finally going to do it. You're going to wear a hole in that collar, Marcus said from behind her. He was wearing his best suit, pressed and perfect. You ready? I think so. Is everyone here? Everyone except the guest of honor, who should arrive in about 10 minutes. Sarah had planned it carefully. A party at Marcus's house to celebrate Diana making name partner at her firman achievement that came with a corner office and her name on the letterhead. Friends from both their firms would be there, along with Diana's brother visiting from France and Sarah's parents. Her parents. That had been its own journey. They'd been skeptical at first, worried that Sarah was repeating patterns of self-sabotage. But over months of dinners and holidays, Diana had won them over with her intelligence, her genuine care for Sarah, and her willingness to talk about Sarah's sister without flinching from the pain. You've got the ring? Marcus asked. Sarah patted her jacket pocket. Right here. The ring was simpler platinum band with 3 small diamonds. Not flashy, but elegant. Very Diana. Then let's do this. The party was in full swing when Diana arrived. She looked stunning in a black dress that hugged her curves, her hair down and curled. Sarah's breath caught, the same way it had the first time she'd seen Diana outside a courtroom. Surprise. Everyone shouted as Diana walked in. Diana's laugh was pure delight. You're all terrible at keeping secrets. Sarah told me 2 days ago. I ruined my own surprise. Sarah came forward to kiss her. I found the calendar reminder on your laptop. Very stealth. Diana pulled her close. But I love it anyway. Thank you. The party flowed around them. Sarah mingled, accepted congratulations on Diana's behalf, and tried not to be obvious about her nervousness. Finally, as dessert was being served, Marcus clinked his glass. If I could have everyone's attention, he called out. Sarah has something she'd like to say. Diana looked at her quizzically. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward. A year ago, she began. I was convinced that Diana Russo was my enemy. She'd just handed me the biggest loss of my career, and I was sure she represented everything I opposed: corporate defense, legal technicalities over justice, winning at the expense of what was right. Diana's expression shifted from confusion to understanding, her hand coming up to her mouth. I was so wrong, Sarah continued. Diana taught me that people are more complicated than the cases they take, that you can fight brilliantly for your clients and still have integrity, that respect and love aren't opposites of opposition, they can coexist with it. Sarah pulled the ring box from her pocket, and the room went silent. Diana, you challenge me every day to be better, not just as a lawyer, but as a person. You've shown me that letting someone in doesn't make me weak. It makes me stronger. And I don't want to spend another day without knowing we're building a future together. She opened the box, revealing the ring. Diana Rousseau, will you marry me? Diana's eyes were streaming tears. You planned a proposal at my name party? I contain multitudes. Apparently, Diana pulled Sarah up and kissed her thrilly, to cheers from their friends. Yes, God, yes. Sarah slipped the ring onto Diana's finger with shaking hands. It fit perfectly. Later, after the party wound down, and they were home in their shared apartment, they lay in bed together, Diana admiring her ring in the dim light. I can't believe you proposed at my party, she said again, too presumptuous. No, perfect. Very you bold and slightly inappropriate. Diana turned to face her. I had a whole plan, you know. I was going to take you to Paris in the spring. Propose on the Pont des Arts. You can still do that. Not as a proposal, as a honeymoon destination. Maybe. Sarah pulled her close. I like the sound of that. Mrs. Mitchell-Rousseau, Ms. Rousseau-Mitchell. We can hyphenate. Good. I'm keeping my name. I wouldn't expect anything less. Sarah kissed her forehead. I love you. My enemy turned fiancé. I love you too. My opponent turned forever. They fell asleep tangled together. Two lawyers who'd found that the best arguments sometimes led to the best outcomes, and that winning wasn't always about the verdict sometimes. It was about the person you found standing across from you when the battle was done. 5 years into their marriage, Sarah woke to an empty bed at 3 a.m. Again, she found Diana in the home office, surrounded by case files, her reading glasses perched on her nose, the blue light from her laptop casting shadows across her exhausted face. Come to bed, Sarah said from the doorway. Diana didn't look up. I need to finish this brief. Oral arguments are in 6 hours. You've been working 18-hour days for 3 weeks straight. You're going to burn out. I'm fine, you're not fine. You haven't had dinner with me and Lily in a week. You missed her dance recital yesterday. That made Diana look up, guilt flashing across her face. That was yesterday? Yes. She asked where Mummer was. I told her you were working on an important case. Sarah crossed her arms. She's starting to think working means you don't want to be with her. Diana removed her glasses, rubbing her eyes. That's not fair, Sarah. Isn't it? When was the last time you read her a bedtime story? When did you last have a conversation with me that wasn't about logistics? I have 3 major cases right now. You know how it is. I do know. I'm also a lawyer, remember? But I make time for our family because that's what we promised each other. Sarah's voice cracked. I feel like I'm married to a ghost. You're here physically, but you're somewhere else mentally. Diana stood abruptly. So, what do you want me to do? Quit? Walk away from cases that matter? I want you to remember why you left that big firm. You said you wanted balance, wanted to be present for Lily, for us. But you've taken on more cases than ever, and you're right back where you started. Maybe because I'm good at what I do. Maybe because these clients need me, and we don't. Sarah's voice rose. Your daughter needs you. Your wife needs you. But apparently, that's not enough. The words hung heavy between them. Diana's face paled. That's not what She stopped, seeming to hear herself. God, Sarah, I don't know what's wrong with me. I thought if I proved myself at the boutique firm, took on the big cases, made name partner again, then I'd feel, I don't know, successful, valuable. You're already those things. Sarah moved closer. But you're also exhausted and missing our daughter's childhood, chasing something that's never going to feel like enough. Diana sank back into her chair, and for the first time in weeks, Sarah really looked at her. The dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the tremor in her hands that spoke of too much coffee and too little sleep. I'm scared, Diana admitted quietly. I'm 47 years old. Every day I see younger lawyers coming up. Sharper, hungrier. What if I slow down and become irrelevant? Sarah knelt beside her chair. You can never be irrelevant. But Diana, you're going to make yourself sick. And more importantly, you're going to miss the life we built. Lily's only 3. These years don't come back. I know, Diana's voice broke. I know, and I feel like I'm failing at everything. Failing you, failing Lily, failing my clients when I'm too tired to think straight. You're not failing. You're human, but you need help. Sarah took her hands. What if we talked to someone, a therapist who specializes in work-life balance? And what if you actually cut back on cases like you planned when you switched firms? Diana looked at their joined hands. I'm supposed to be the strong one, the one who has it all figured out. No one has it all figured out. That's a myth designed to make us all feel inadequate. Sarah squeezed her hands. Come to bed. The brief can wait for hours. You need sleep more than you need to perfect an argument that's already excellent. Diana hesitated, then nodded. She saved her work and let Sarah lead her to their bedroom. They lay facing each other in the darkness. I'm sorry, Diana whispered. I've been a terrible wife and mother. You've been overwhelmed and scared. That's different. Sarah brushed hair from Diana's face. But we can't keep going like this. Something has to change. I'll call Dr. Martinez tomorrow. Set up an appointment. We'll call. This affects both of us. Double quotes. Diana pulled her close. How did I get so lucky to have you? You proposed with perfect French pastries after I said yes. That helped. Diana's laugh was tired, but genuine. I did do that, right? They fell asleep holding each other. And for the first time in weeks, neither woke up to an empty bed. Dr. Rachel Martinez's office was warm and filled with plants. Nothing like the sterile corporate environments they usually inhabited. Sarah and Diana sat on opposite ends of a comfortable couch, a careful distance between them. Tell me why you're here, Dr. Martinez said, pen poised over her notepad. They took turns explaining Diana's work obsession, Sarah's growing resentment, Lily caught in the middle, the love that was still there but getting buried under stress and exhaustion. What I'm hearing, Dr. Martinez said after 40 minutes, is that you both have different fears driving your behaviors. Diana, you're afraid of becoming irrelevant and losing your identity as a successful attorney. Sarah, you're afraid of losing your family to the same career ambitions that you've worked hard to balance. Does that sound accurate? They both nodded. Here's what I want you to understand. Neither fear is irrational. The legal profession rewards overwork and punishes boundaries. But you're also in a position that many lawyers aren't, who have seniority, reputation, and the ability to make different choices. Diana leaned forward. But how do I make those choices without feeling like I'm giving up part of myself? By redefining what success means. Dr. Martinez looked at her kindly. Right now, success means taking every case, working every hour, proving yourself constantly. What if success meant being present for your daughter's childhood, having energy for your marriage, sleeping through the night? That feels like settling, does it? Or does it feel like growing? Dr. Martinez turned to Sarah. And you're managing to balance work and family. But you're also building resentment instead of clearly communicating your needs. When did you stop telling Diana what you actually need? Sarah felt exposed. I didn't want to seem needy. Diana's always been so independent, so capable. I thought if I just handled everything at home, she'd eventually notice and adjust. That's not communication. That's martyrdom. Dr. Martinez's voice was gentle but firm. You both need to be honest about what you need and what you can give. No scorekeeping, no assumptions. Over the next 3 months, therapy became a regular part of their routine. They learned to have difficult conversations without attacking. Diana gradually reduced her caseload, saying no to high-profile clients that would consume her life. She started leaving work at 6 p.m. 3 days a week, making those evenings sacred family time. Sarah learned to ask for help instead of silently resenting when she didn't get it. She admitted that she'd been comparing herself to Diana's career trajectory and feeling like she was falling behind. which made her want to be the perfect homemaker to compensate. You don't need to compensate for anything, Diana told her one evening as they cooked dinner together while Lily colored at the kitchen table. I fell in love with an ambitious, brilliant attorney, not a housewife. I want you to go after the senior partner position. I'll adjust my schedule to support that. Sarah stopped chopping vegetables. Really, we're partners. Remember, that means taking turns carrying the weight. They restructured their lives. Sarah went for the senior partner position and got it, which meant longer hours for 6 months. Diana adjusted, picking up more of the parenting duties, being the one to drop off and pick up Lily from preschool. He discovered he actually enjoyed the slower pace, the time to be present. Sarah noticed the change in both of them. Diana laughed more, seemed lighter. Lily stopped asking where Mummer was because Mummer was there, present and engaged, building block towers and playing tea party without glancing at her phone. One Saturday morning, Sarah woke to find Diana and Lily making pancakes together. Flour everywhere, Lily's giggles filling the kitchen. Mommy, we're making heart pancakes, Lily announced, covered in batter. I see that. You're both a mess. Diana turned, spatula in hand, looking happier than Sarah had seen her in months. We're artists. Artists are always messy. Sarah grabbed her phone and took a picture, capturing this moment. Her wife and daughter, covered in flour, completely present, completely happy. That evening, after Lily was in bed, they sat on the back porch with glasses of wine, watching the sunset. Thank you, Diana said quietly. For what? For not giving up on me, for pushing me to get help, for loving me even when I was being impossible. Diana took her hand. I almost lost everything that matters because I was too afraid to let go of things that don't. We almost lost it, Sarah corrected. I wasn't perfect either. I was so busy being the martyr that I forgot to be your partner. Well, we're both learning. Diana squeezed her hand. Dr. Martinez was right. Success isn't about the cases we win or the partnerships we make. It's this, right here, being present for the life we built. Look at us, being emotionally mature. It's very disturbing. Next thing you know, we'll be communicating effectively and respecting each other's boundaries. Sarah laughed. The horror, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn pink and orange. Inside, Lily was safe and sleeping. Their careers were thriving, but no longer consuming them. And they had each other, tested and stronger for it. I love you, Sarah said. Even when you're a workaholic who forgets to eat, I love you too. Even when you're a martyr who won't ask for help, we're working on it. We are. Diana pulled her close. And we're doing pretty damn well. Inside, they heard Lily call out from her room. They looked at each other, and without discussion, both stood to go to her together. Because that's what partners did. They showed up. They adjusted. They chose each other and their family over and over again. And in the end, that was the best closing argument either of them had ever made. 3 years later, Sarah stood in a different courtroom, facing a different opponent. Diana sat in the gallery, along with their 18-month-old daughter, Lily, adopted after a year-long process that had brought them closer together than ever. Sarah was now a senior associate specializing in employment law, taking on cases that mattered. Diana had moved to a boutique firm where she could be more selective about her clients, turning down cases that didn't align with her values. They still disagreed about the law, still had heated debates over dinner about legal philosophy, but they'd learned to hold their convictions alongside their love for each other, to respect the differences that made them stronger together than apart. As Sarah delivered her closing argument for a case she would win this time, she caught Diana's eye. Diana smiled, and in that smile was everything: pride, love, partnership, and the promise that even when they stood on opposite sides, they'd always come home to each other. Because some enemies become lovers, and some lovers become family. And the best battles are the ones that teach you that love and opposition aren't mutually exclusive. They're two sides of the same passionate coin.